Good afternoon, all. Today, our lecture is based on the cyclic voltammetric studies of coordination compound. In previous two lectures, we were discussing how polarography, the technique of polarography, was used to study the coordination compounds. What were the different applications and different techniques of polarography by which coordination compounds have been studied. Today we will discuss about the cyclic voltammetry, how cyclic voltammetry has been used for the studies of coordination compound. So both these techniques are basically type of electroanalytical techniques. So different electroanalytical techniques they have found their application in the characterization of the complex ion in solution. And why we are able to apply the electroanalytical techniques for complexes? The simple reason behind it is during the complex formation, what happens? There is a transfer of electrons, right? So whenever a complex is being formed, the ligand is transferring its electron to the metal, and sometimes when the back bonding also exists, metal is transferring its electron to the ligand. So this type of electron transfer, the metal-ligand interaction, this can be studied by different electroanalytical technique and especially by the cyclic voltammetry. So if I compare the polarographic technique and the cyclic voltammetry, so the later, the cyclic voltammetry has been proved to be very useful and giving the satisfactory results for the metal complexes which were synthesized in case of both higher and lower ligand concentrations. And you can also obtain the overall formation constants by using the technique of CV, that is cyclic voltammetry. Now, the data that we are obtaining from the CV, cyclic voltammetry, we can also use it to support the results that we are getting from X-ray crystallography. X-ray crystallography, another very important technique for the study of metal complexes, and the example is given here, that is copper thiourea halide complex. These were the complexes for them the X-ray crystallographic data, it was supported by the results of cyclic voltammetry. So sometimes, rather than being an independent technique, it is also behaving like a secondary technique from which the data is gathered to support some other data. Now, the redox potential and the reversibility obtained by the CV. CV you can use to characterize whether the reaction is reversible or not. So we have seen that in case of a cyclic voltammetry, we can have a reversible process, irreversible process, and quasi-reversible process. So by obtaining that data, the redox potential and the reversibility, you can use that data to study the metalloenzymes. Now, if you know, the metalloenzymes are those enzymes which are having a metal ion at the center of the protein quaternary structure. So, enzymes are basically proteins having a quaternary structure in a specific 3D orientation, and at the center of the protein, we have a metal ion. So, when the enzymes work, basically they do oxidation or reduction of the metal ion. So, whenever the electron transfer process is involved in any of the process, then we can study it by using the electroanalytical technique, and especially the cyclic voltammetry can be used. So the metalloenzymes, like having the cofactor of molybdenum complexes. Cofactor is at the center of the protein. The metal complex exists, and we call it a cofactor. So this cofactor is actually can be removed from the enzyme itself. So we call it a cofactor. Cofactor of a metalloenzyme, like we have molybdenum complexes, they are studied by using the technique of cyclic voltammetry, and that was later on used to describe its physiological role. Similarly, the characterization of the metal complexes can also be done by using the cyclic voltammetric technique, and this has been applied for the investigation of catalytic activity. Now, we have seen many catalytic cycles in which the metal is undergoing different reactions like oxidative addition and reductive elimination. So, in those cases, the oxidation or reduction of the metal, because it involves transfer of electrons, so we can investigate such processes also by cyclic voltammetry, And the example for which the studies have been done is removal of toxic phenolic substances, especially dyes. So such studies were also done by using the cyclic voltammetry technique. Now, if you look at the quantum level, at the level of electron, then the redox potential from the cyclic voltammetry, they can be used in calculating the LUMO and HOMO, as well as the gaps of new organic semiconductors which are applicable in everyday life. Because if electron transfer, you know very well that electrons are getting transferred from HOMO to LUMO, right? HOMOs are the occupied molecular orbitals having electrons in them, and LUMO are the or molecular orbitals which are empty. So LUMOs are accepting electrons from the HOMOs. So again, there is an electron transfer process, and when you calculate the redox potential from cyclic voltammetry, you can basically understand the energy level of HOMO and LUMO, and also by using such thing, you can find out the band gap of semiconductors. And many new organic semiconductors, they were studied by using the cyclic voltammetry. So these are generally having application in our everyday life. So this is also a very important application of cyclic voltammetry. Now this technique is also found to be very advantageous, very useful when it comes to characterize the quantum dots, particularly when we have to find out their stability. And the CV, the cyclic voltammetry, it is also shown to be effective in the molecular imprinting of the copper complexes. The copper complexes are basically widely studied, and if you search the internet, you will find so many studies in which the cyclic voltammetry has been applied to study the copper complexes. Now, what are the other applications? So, cyclic voltammetry can also be used in tracing activated iridium oxide film, that is AROF, microelectrode via the variation of scan rate during the steps of fabrication and animal implantation. So, such iridium oxide films are actually used for the animal implantation, and this technique can be used to trace this activated film when you vary the scan rate. And again, this is a very important application of cyclic voltammetry. Then CV from the gold rotating disc electrode, AURD rotating disc electrode. This is a working electrode which is used in the cyclic voltammetry, and this has been proved to be very useful in determining the surface coverage of silica microparticle monolayer. And this actually develops when it is getting absorbed on some surface, and it reveals that the absorption is stronger with increasing diameter and surface coverage, which actually sheds the light on the deposition of a variety of particles onto the surface. So again, here you can use the cyclic voltammetry technique by changing the working electrode to gold rotating disc electrode, and you can study the silica microparticle monolayer. Now, this technique is also used to study the fuel cell, and CV has been used to characterize the synthesized platinum ruthenium catalyst and their catalytic activities. So, generally, platinum catalyst is used in case of fuel cells, but it can be mixed with ruthenium, and the effectiveness of such catalysts can be studied, and their catalytic activities, they can be studied by using the cyclic voltammetric technique. Now, the CV has been used in the characterization of metal hydrides also. Metal hydrides, they are a very important group of transition metal ligand complex in which the ligand is hydride. So, using NaOH instead of KOH reduces the hydrogen adsorption, reabsorption, and it results in the better performance of the nickel metal hydride battery. So, as you can see, the cyclic voltammetric technique has found numerous applications in different fields, including from the biomedical fields to the fuel cell and batteries, animal implantation. So, all these are actually involving one or another metal complex where we are using the cyclic voltammetry. So why cyclic voltammetry is so important, and why it is being used so widely in case of metal complexes, to study the metal complexes. So let us take an example. and understand why the cyclic voltammetry technique is so important. So the electrochemistry relates the flow of electron to the chemical change. This is what we study in the field of electrochemistry, how the electrons are flowing and what is the resulting chemical change. And especially in the inorganic chemistry, the resulting chemical change is often the oxidation or reduction of a metal form. So if specifically we talk about the metal complex, what are the different electron reactions that are going to take place? There could be either the oxidation or the reduction. Either the electrons are being removed from the complex, or electrons are being accepted by the metal complex. So let us understand the difference between the chemical reduction and electrochemical reduction. These two are the two different terms, and that is when you understand why these two terms are different, then you will understand why cyclic voltammetry is so important when you are studying the metal complexes. So here we have taken an example, that is the reduction of ferrocenium, that is written as Fc plus, to the ferrocene, which is written as Fc. So here the reduction is seen Fc plus the ligand that you have taken is cobalt Cp twice, that is the cyclopentadienyl, and now this Fc is reduced to ferrocene, and the positive charge, that is electron, is actually gained from this cobalt complex, and the positive charge is transferred to it. So here you can see at some electrode, the Fc plus is getting electron and it is converting into Fc. So ferrocenium is getting reduced by accepting one electron and forming the ferrocene. So this is the process of reduction which is taking place here, and obviously in most of the cases, our working electrode is actually involved for the reduction process. Now there is a question: why does this COCP star twice? That CP star is actually pentamethyl cyclopentadienyl. It reduces the Fc plus. Why this reaction happens? So if you give a simple explanation to this, an electron transfer from this complex to the Fc plus occurs, that we have just seen. Electron is getting transferred from this complex to the species Fc plus, because the lowest unoccupied molecular orbital, that is LUMO of the Fc plus, is at a lower energy than the electrons in the highest occupied molecular orbital, that is HOMO of the complex. So transfer of an electron between the two molecules in the solution is thermodynamically favorable. So this is the simplest explanation that could be given, and it is what this is the chemical reduction process. So this is actually what this is the homogeneous electron transfer, and it is being done by using a chemical reductant, that is a cobalt complex. So here you can see the LUMO of the Fc plus is having lower energy than the HOMO of the cobalt complex, and one electron is actually getting transferred from here to here. And what happens here now? The pairing of the electron takes place. HOMO of the cobalt complex is now empty, and this results into the reduction of ferrocenium into ferrocene. So the transfer of electron between the two molecules in the solution is thermodynamically favorable, and the difference in the energy level is the driving force for the reaction. So what we can say is, because the energy difference is not that high, so this type of reaction is thermodynamically favorable. And the energy difference between the HOMO and the LUMO, they are actually the driving force. So this is a chemical reduction, the chemical reduction of ferrocenium to ferrocene, and it takes place by the homogeneous electron transfer. The next case you can see heterogeneous electron transfer using an electrode. Now, why this is heterogeneous? Because now molecular species are not transferring their electrons by themselves. Rather, an electrode is involved here, which is obviously in the solid state. So there is a change in the phase, and the electron transfer is, it is heterogeneous in nature. So the heterogeneous electron transfer is using an electrode here. In the electrochemical reduction, Fe plus is reduced via heterogeneous electron transfer from an electrode. Here, Fe plus is not accepting electron from any cobalt species, rather, it is getting electron from the electrode. So, what is the driving force for this process? Now, we have seen in the earlier case, here we have seen the energy difference between these two orbitals is the driving force of such reduction process. So the chemical reductant is actually supporting the electron transfer. But what is the driving force in case of such electrochemical reduction? When the electrons are getting transferred from electrode to ferrocenium. So an electrode is an electrical conductor, and it is typically what platinum, gold, mercury, glassy, carbon. We have seen all these working electrodes which are being used for the cyclic voltammetry. So through the use of an external power source, such as a potentiostat, you have to, when you're applying the potential, you're using a potentiostat. So you're applying voltage. That voltage can be applied to the electrode to modulate the energy of the electrons in the electrode. So when you're applying a voltage, electrons in the electrode, they change their energy. So when the electrons in the electrode are at higher energy than the LUMO of the Fc plus, the electrons from the electrode is transferred to Fc plus. So that was our previous diagram where heterogeneous transfer of electrons are taking place. So the theory is when we are applying potential, what happens here? This was the earlier levels of electronic energy in the electrode. But when we have applied the potential, what happens? The energy of the electron become high, and now they can be easily transferred to the lower energy LUMO of Fc plus. So this is the actually driving force for electrochemical reduction. The driving force for this electrochemical reaction is again the energy difference between that of the electrode and the LUMO of the Fc plus. So what important conclusion we can draw here? When you change the driving force of a chemical reduction, it requires changing the identity of the molecule which you are using as a reductant. So in this case, we have used cobalt complex as a reductant. So in order to change the process, if you suppose you are changing the driving force for that chemical reduction, so you need to change the entire molecule. Now you need a separate complex of some other metal ion. But when it comes to electrochemistry, you need not to change anything, but you are just changing the applied potential, and that change in the applied potential is sufficient to study the reduction process, because as per the requirement you can make the electrons to higher or lower energy level by simply changing the voltage, the applied voltage. So it is very easy to control such electrochemical reductions. So therefore you can say that when you are applying the cyclic voltammetry process, it becomes really easy for you to control a reaction and to study the reaction that is taking place in the metal complex, whether it is oxidation or reduction. But in the electrochemistry, it becomes much easier to control the process. So, at its core, the power of electrochemistry resides in the simplicity with which the driving force of a reaction can be controlled, and the ease with which thermodynamic and kinetic parameters can be measured. So cyclic voltammetry, now let us understand a few basic concepts. Cyclic voltammetry is a powerful and popular electrochemical technique, and it is commonly employed to investigate the reduction and oxidation processes. Now, it is also invaluable to study the electron transfer initiated chemical reactions, which include the catalysis. So many examples of applications of the cyclic voltammetry we have seen earlier. Now, generally, when the cyclic voltammetry studies is performed, we get a diagram like this. As a result of the cyclic voltammetry, you get a diagram like this, and this is called a voltammogram. So, and when you are performing the simple voltammetry, it is voltammogram, and when you are applying the cyclic voltammetry, when you are changing the potential in both direction, you get a cyclic voltagram. So, in this diagram, you can see the potential is applied on this axis, and it is the current that is generated. The arrow actually represented the scan direction of the scan. So here from more negative to low negative value we are scanning the potential. So the voltagram of a bare electrode under nitrogen, it is a blue trace. Okay, blue line is representing this, a bare electrode under air, and the complex taken is this, okay, under the N2. So this is the green trace. When you are have taken this reductant, okay, this is the reductant that we are taking for the Fc plus to Fc conversion. Then when you change the reductant to another complex, it becomes like the orange trace, and All the experiments you can see here, they are actually done by putting the scan rate, that is nu is 100 millivolt per second, with a 3 mm glassy carbon working electrode, 3 mm glassy carbon counter electrode, and a silver wire pseudo reference electrode. So generally the results are obtained like this. And now what you have to do, you have to extract information from this cyclic voltagram. So once you get a cyclic voltagram, now you need to understand what does it mean, what is this duck shape means. And now you need to extract information from such figure. So how we can do that? First of all, let us see the convention. So we have basically two conventions. We have IUPAC and US convention for the cyclic voltagrams. And if you see them carefully, these both of these two are actually used to report the data. So when you see them carefully, the US convention is used here, and the the voltage, the potential is actually changed from high to low value, right? The potential scanned from the high to low value, and the reduction is showing by the upper part, and oxidation is showing by lower part. So here the arrow you can see, it is showing that the potential is scanned by in this direction. It is slowly increasing to the negative value, or you can say this is a cathodic scan, right? And this is the IUPAC convention. In the IUPAC convention, the arrow is just at the reverse part. It is just opposite to the earlier convention, and you can see the voltage is actually scanned from low potential to high potential. So it is nothing but the different direction of the scan that has actually changed the two diagrams, but the results are actually same. And it does not matter whether the US or IUPAC convention is used. So generally, you can understand by looking at any of the cyclic voltagram. If you look at the position of this arrow, or if you look at the values of the applied potential, whether they are from high to low or low to high, then you can identify easily what type of convention is being used to represent this cyclic voltagram data. So moving forward, how we can extract data from the cyclic voltagram. Now each trace contains an arrow indicating the direction in which the potential was scanned to record the data. We have seen arrow in the cyclic voltagram, and it is actually representing that, like look at it again. So in this direction, voltage is there being scanned, and here the voltage is being scanned from here to here. So this is the high potential to low potential. So generally, this is a cathodic scan. When you generally lower down or go towards the more negative value of the potential. So this we call as the cathodic scan. So the arrow indicates the beginning and the sweep direction of first segment or forward scan, and the caption indicates the condition of the experiment. Now a value is mentioned at the bottom of the figure, that is V is equal to 100 millivolt per second. So this is what? This is called as scan rate, and it indicates that during the experiment the potential was varied linearly at the speed of 100 millivolt per second. So if you are looking the arrow like this, if it is a forward scan, it means that your voltage is changing 100 millivolt per second. Then panel I shows the relationship between time and applied potential. What is panel I? So this is the panel I. It shows relationship between the voltage, applied potential, and time. And here potential axis is the x-axis to see the relationship with the corresponding voltagram in panel H. So in panel H you have a voltagram depicted here. So what does it say? It says that in this example, the forward scan, the potential is swept negatively from the starting potential E1 to the switching potential E2. This is referring to as the cathodic trace. The scan direction is then reversed, and the potential is swept positively back to E1, referred to as the anodic trace. So now let us understand in detail what is the cyclic voltagram. So this graph is actually showing applied potential as a function of time. How you are changing the potential with time. For a generic cyclic voltammetry experiment with the initial switching and end potential. So this is initial switching and end potential. So sorry, initial switching and end potential ADG. A was the initial potential. You can compare these 2 points here. When we have just started our experiment, this is the initial potential that was applied. Now, you constantly change the potential by a rate of 100 millivolt per second, and when you reaches to the D, this is my switching potential. Now, the direction of the trace is reversed. Now, you reverse the scan of the voltage, and now it is again coming back to the G, that is the end potential. So initially you are starting from the point A, E1, you go to the potential value E2, and then you come again back to G, that is the E1 potential. So it starts here and ends here at the same potential value, that is E1. But meanwhile you have actually reached, you have gone up to the E2 value and you have come back. So this type of voltagram is generated in which you can see the potential. Again, this potential is taken for Fc plus to Fc, that is ferrocenium to ferrocene reduction. And this is the forward scan and this is the backward scan. So forward scan is when you are changing the potential to a negative value, right? From point 3 to minus point 3, you can see here. So this is a cathodic scan when you are making the potential more negative. So what reaction is taking place here? Fc plus is accepting electron from the electrode and it is getting reduced to Fc. Now, when you switch the potential after the switching value, when you switch that the direction of the voltage, and now you are changing it from the negative value to a positive value, this is called the anodic trace. And at anode, what happens? Anode observes oxidation. So this is the reverse process of the above. And here what is happening? The ferrocene is actually getting oxidized to ferrocenium and relieving one electron. So we have started our experiment from the point A, where the potential was E1, and at the end we have come back to the similar potential, but the point is G. So this has taken certain time, and this is the duck shape. This is generally observed in case of cyclic voltagram. Now let us understand what this duck shape is. So this duck shape, this is like maybe you can resemble it like a duck. So, what does it say? We need to understand the duck shape. Why we get that duck shape in the cyclic voltagram? So, why there are these peaks in the cyclic voltagram? So, we consider the equilibrium between the ferrocenium Fc plus and ferrocene Fc. So, when you are considering the equilibrium, at the equilibrium you can apply Nernst equation. This is my Nernst equation. OX is the species that is undergoing the oxidation, and RED the species that is undergoing the reduction. So you need to write down the concentrations here. So the Nernst equation relates the potential of an electrochemical cell to the standard potential of a species E naught, and the relative activities of the oxidized and reduced analyte in the system at equilibrium. So in the equation, F is the Faraday constant and R is the universal gas constant, N is number of electron and T is the temperature. So this is the normal Nernst equation. So when we have considered the equilibrium between the ferrocenium and ferrocene, now by the actual concentration, from the actual concentration, you can replace them by the activities of the respective species. So Fc plus upon Fc, these are representing the activities of these two species. Now, the Nernst equation, it provides a powerful way to predict how a system will respond to change in the concentration of a species in solution or a change in the electrode potential. Just to illustrate, if a potential of E is equal to E naught becomes equal to E half. So if the potential which is just equal to the half wave potential is applied to our Fc plus solution, the Nernst equation actually predicts that Fc plus will be reduced to Fc until the Fc plus will become equal to Fc. So ferrocenium will become equal to ferrocene. It occurs when you apply the potential that is just equal to the half wave potential. Alternatively, when the potential is scanned through the CV experiment, The concentration of the species in solution near electrode changes over time in accordance with the Nernst equation. So whatever potential you are applying to the process during the scanning of the potential, different potential values they are applying. So the concentration of the species vary according to that, as per the potential you are applying. So when a solution of Fc plus is scanned to a negative potential, that is the cathodic scan, the upper part of your diagram, the Fc plus is reduced to Fc locally at the electrode. So during the cathodic scan, all the Fc plus ion present in the solution, they are getting electron from the electrode and they are getting reduced. So resulting in the measurement of a current and depletion of Fc plus at the electrode surface. Crucially, the concentration of the Fc plus versus Fc relative to the distance from surface of the electrode, they are dependent on the potential applied. So it depends actually on what is the value of potential that you have applied. It will decide the distance of these species from the electrode surface and how species move between the surface of the electrode and the bulk solution. So these factors they all contribute to the duck-shaped voltagrams. And again, here you can see the voltagram and you can understand these different points. So this point A, here we are taking the Fc as a line green and Fc plus, that is ferrocenium. This is line blue. So the blue colored line is showing the ferrocenium and green colored line is showing the ferrocene. So at the point A, we have just started our experiment and the E is equal to E1. So this E1 is actually the starting potential and here you can see there is no change in the concentration of ferrocene or ferrocenium. Now, in the panel B, you can see now your potential is becoming equal to the E half. This is the point B, right? When your potential is becoming equal to half wave potential. So at point B, what happens now? Uh, the concentration of ferrocene and ferrocenium, they both are declining. And now what happens at a certain point they becomes equal. So here what happens? The equilibrium has established. Now at the point C again you can see their concentration have been changed. The ferrocenium is actually getting reduced and its concentration is declining. And when it is reduced, it is forming ferrocene. So concentration of ferrocene is continuously increasing in the forward scan, right? Now what happens at the point D? This is our switching potential. All the ferrocenium is actually reduced and its concentration has fallen and or it is actually reduced into the ferrocene. So ferrocenium concentration is reduced to 0 and ferrocene concentration is actually reached to 1. So now what happens at the point D, we switch our potential scan direction and now we are following an anodic trace. So in this anodic trace now what happens, the reaction is reversible and the reversible reaction takes place now. The ferrocene will be oxidized into ferrocenium and releasing the electron. So what happens after the point D, after the point D, when the E is equal to E half, again you are reaching to that potential range at the point E. So at this point what happens now, the concentration of ferrocene and concentration of ferrocenium, they are becoming again to near to each other and again as equilibrium established, but this time this is due to the oxidation of the ferrocene. Finally you reach to the G, so this G is actually similar to the panel A. So now understand this diagram in detail as the potential is scanned negatively, that is cathodically, from point A to point D that we have seen. Fc plus is steadily depleted. Its concentration is actually reducing and why? Because it is getting reduced, accepting electrons and forming Fc. At point C where the peak cathodic current is observed, the current is dictated by the delivery of additional Fc plus via diffusion from the bulk solution. So more and more Fc plus is coming towards the electrode so that it can accept electron and get reduced to Fc. The volume of the solution at the surface of the electrode containing the reduced Fc is called the diffusion layer. So all the reduced Fc that is getting collected around the electrode, it is what it is forming a diffusion layer, and it continues to grow throughout the scan. Now what happens is, since this diffusion layer is formed around the electrode, this will slow down the mass transport of Fc plus to the electrode. Therefore, upon scanning to more negative potential, the rate of diffusion of Fc plus from the bulk solution to the electrode surface becomes slower, and this result in the decrease in the current as the scan continues. So when you are continuing the scan from C to D, you saw a decrease in the current. So look this diagram again. From point C to D, you are seeing a decrease in the current. But from point A to B and to the C, you are seeing increase in the current. So when your reduction has just started, the current is being continuously increased due to the movement of the Fc plus from bulk towards the electrode. But when the Fc plus has been already reduced to Fc, it is forming a layer around the electrode. And now what will happen? More Fc plus cannot enter near to the electrode, and a diffusion layer of Fe is formed. So what happens now? The value of current is continuously decreasing from C to D. So when the switching potential D is reached, the scan direction is reversed. Now you are following an anodic trace. The potential is scanned in the positive direction, that is anodic trace, from negative to positive value of the potential. While the concentration of Fc plus at the electrode surface was depleted, the concentration of Fc at the electrode surface is increasing, satisfying the Nernst equation. So this actually tells us that the reaction is reversible in nature, because now what is happening? The Fc that is being formed at the during the cathodic scan, now it is getting oxidized to form Fc plus, and now this Fc plus is getting collected around the electrode surface. So it actually satisfies the Nernst equation. The reaction is reversible in nature. Both the oxidation and reduction, they can happen. So the Fc present at the electrode surface is oxidizing back to Fc plus as the applied potential become more positive. And at the point B and E, the concentration of Fc plus and Fc at the electrode surface are equal. So this shows that the equilibrium has established, and our process is following the Nernst equation. So E is equal to E half. Your potential is actually becoming just equal to the half wave potential. Now the Fc present at the electrode surface is oxidized back to Fc plus as the applied potential becomes more negative. And you can observe this from point B and C. And this at the point D, this corresponds to the half wave potential between the two observed peaks, that is C and F, and it provides a straightforward way to estimate the E naught for a reversible electron transfer as noted above. The two peaks are separated due to the diffusion of the analyte to and from the electrode. So when you get the difference between these two peaks, that difference is actually very important. If the reduction process is chemically and electrochemically reversible, the difference between the anodic and cathodic peak potential, and we call it peak to peak separation, it should be what? It should be 57 millivolt, and this value should be constant. And if this is the difference between the cathodic and anodic peak, you can see that the reaction is completely reversible in nature. So this should be the value at 25 degrees Celsius. This is a constant, the peak to peak separation, and the width at the half max on the forward scan of the peak is 59 millivolt. So if you're getting this value as a constant 57 millivolt and 59 millivolt, it says that the reaction is reversible in nature. So the chemical reversibility is used to denote whether the analyte is stable upon the reduction and can subsequently reoxidize. The analytes that react in the homogeneous chemical process upon reduction, they generally include ligand loss or degradation. They are not chemically reversible. When you are performing the chemical reduction, at the same time you cannot reverse this process, right? You cannot suddenly change the course of the reaction and make the oxidation of the product. So this is the limitation of the chemical reduction. Electrochemical reversibility refers to the electron transfer kinetics between the electrode and the analyte. So when there is a low barrier to electron transfer, electrochemical reversibility is obtained. And you say a Nernstian equilibrium established immediately upon any change in the applied potential. So, when by contrast, if you just look at the opposite part of it, when there is a high barrier to the electron transfer, then you get what? Electrochemical irreversibility, and in that case, your reaction is irreversible reaction. The electron transfer reactions are sluggish. They take very long time to complete, and more negative or more positive potentials are required to observe the reduction or oxidation reaction. And this gives rise to a larger peak to peak separation, that is delta U peak, and the value will not be anymore, it will not be 57 millivolt, it will be higher than that. So when the EP value, by just looking at the EP value, you can say the reaction is whether it is a reverse called Nernstian equation or Nernstian processes. So for a process to be Nernstian equation, the electron transfer should be very quick, and the delta EP value should be 57 millivolts. So you call it a Nernstian process. Now for today's lecture, I have a quiz for you. I want you to find out a cyclic voltagram in the literature that could be available anywhere on the internet. So you just take out a cyclic voltagram figure from the internet, and from the today's lecture, the information that you got from here, you just try to apply that information on the cyclic voltagram, and try to extract information from it. You just take your notebook and try to understand what the cyclic voltagram says, and when you have extracted all the information and noted it down in your notebook, then you just compare your observation with the actual results available along with the diagram. So this will help in enhancing your understanding of the cyclic voltammetric study. For today's lecture, the points have been taken from these two sources. So that is all from my side. Thank you so much.